The Pacific Ocean was nothing like Jake Miller had ever imagined. Growing up in Nebraska, surrounded by endless wheat fields that mimicked ocean waves, he had constructed an idealized vision of the sea. Reality was far more complex, far more challenging, and infinitely more beautiful. Santa Cruz greeted him like a living, breathing organism, a world so fundamentally different from his landlocked past that it seemed to exist on an entirely different plane of existence. The coastal town was a kaleidoscope of contradictions. Laid-back surfer culture mixed with tech industry professionals, bohemian artists coexisted with conservative locals, and the landscape shifted between urban complexity and natural raw beauty. Jake's arrival was anything but glamorous. The old Ford F-150 that had carried him across multiple states was more rust than paint, its engine making sounds that suggested each mile might be its last. He had carefully budgeted every dollar, understanding that his dream hung by the thinnest of financial threads. His first night in Santa Cruz was spent in his truck, parked near a beach access point. The sound of waves became his first real lullaby, a rhythm so different from the wind rustling through wheat fields that it felt almost alien. Seagulls called in the distance, a soundtrack completely removed from the familiar chirping of Nebraska meadowlarks. The Rodriguez family became his unexpected anchor. Marcus Rodriguez, Sarah's uncle, was a local surfing legend with a complicated history. Once a promising professional surfer, a serious injury had ended his competitive career in his late 20s. Now, in his late 50s, he ran a small surf shop and offered lessons, his body still displaying the lean, muscular build of someone who had spent a lifetime in the water. Elena Rodriguez, Marcus's wife, was the true heart of their family, a high school Spanish teacher with a warm smile and an even warmer heart. She saw in Jake a lost soul that needed nurturing. Her Mexican heritage spoke of immigration, of dreams pursued against impossible odds, and she recognized a similar spirit in the young farm boy. "You have the eyes of a dreamer," she told Jake during his first dinner at their home, a massive spread of homemade enchiladas and fresh salsa. But dreams require more than just looking. They require doing. Marcus was more pragmatic in his approach. His first assessment of Jake was brutally honest. "You've got a farmer's body," he said, making Jake stand in his surf shop, critically examining his physique. "Strong, disciplined, but surfing isn't about muscle. It's about understanding, about feeling, about becoming part of something larger than yourself." The surfing community of Santa Cruz was a complex ecosystem. Locals who had grown up with the ocean in their blood viewed newcomers with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. A farm boy from Nebraska was an immediate oddity, someone who represented everything opposite to their coastal lifestyle. Jake's first surfboard was a testament to his limited resources. A used board from a local pawn shop, it was heavy, outdated, and carried the scars of multiple owners. Professional surfers would have laughed at such equipment, but to Jake, it represented months of careful saving and his entire hope for the future. His initial surfing lessons were nothing short of humiliating. Where local teenagers and experienced surfers moved with fluid grace, Jake was a study in awkwardness. Waves didn't just reject him, they seemed to actively conspire to throw him off balance. Salt water filled his nose, sand abraded his skin, and his body became a constant canvas of bruises and minor injuries. But Jake Miller was not someone who understood the concept of failure. His approach to learning surfing was identical to how he had approached farming: methodical, disciplined, with an almost scientific dedication. While other aspiring surfers would practice occasionally, Jake was at the beach before sunrise, studying wave patterns, practicing his stance on the sand, watching instructional videos at local internet cafes during every spare moment. To survive, he worked multiple jobs. A morning shift at a beachside cafe provided free coffee and proximity to the water. Afternoon work at a local boat repair shop offered income and additional understanding of maritime equipment. Evening shifts at a local restaurant completed his daily survival strategy. His living situation was Spartan. A tiny studio apartment shared with two other aspiring surfers became his home. The space was a controlled chaos of surfing equipment, boards leaning against walls, wet wetsuits hanging to dry, the constant smell of neoprene and salt permeating everything. Marcus became more than just an instructor. He became a mentor, a bridge between Jake's agricultural past and his oceanic future. Surfing is a conversation, Marcus would explain during their lessons. The wave speaks, and you must listen. You don't fight the ocean. You communicate with it. You become part of its rhythm. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Jake began to change. His body, already strong from years of farm work, began to adapt to the different muscles required for surfing. His skin, previously pale and marked by farm tan lines, started to take on a different quality, sun-kissed with the beginnings of a surfer's physique. Sarah kept in touch, her journalistic instincts seeing the potential in his story. Emails arrived filled with encouragement, occasional care packages bringing small comforts from home, homemade cookies, local Nebraska newspaper clippings, small reminders of the life he had left behind. The breakthrough came on a morning that most experienced surfers would have avoided. The surf was challenging, waves that seemed more like liquid mountains than gentle rollers. Where experienced surfers saw danger, Jake saw opportunity. Marcus watched from the beach, a complex mixture of concern, curiosity, and something that might have been hope in his eyes. Jake's approach was different. Where others would hesitate, he paddled out with the same determination he had used to work fields since childhood. His body moved with an intuition that surprised even himself. Not the stylized movements of professional surfers, but something raw and authentic. When he caught that first real wave, the world seemed to pause. It wasn't a perfect ride. Far from it. But it was a moment of pure, absolute connection between human and nature, between dream and reality. As he emerged from the water, salt-soaked and exhausted but with a smile that could have lit up the entire California coast, Marcus was waiting. "Not bad," he said, a rare smile crossing his weathered face. Not bad at all for a farm boy. Jake Miller was no longer just an outsider trying to learn surfing. He was becoming a surfer, and the ocean, in its infinite wisdom, had finally accepted him. His true journey was just beginning.